Hello, everybody. Let's see if we can get the comments going. Let me know if you are here. Oh, let's see if that works. We'll see if we get there. Good afternoon. There we go. Um, is always fun to see what happens here with these comments. Still like sits in like with this like slow roaming posing or posting. So I'm always like, okay, let's see if we can make this work. Something went wrong. There we go. Expand them. Hopefully this is going to go. All right, we'll see if it goes. Welcome to the Awakening Circle. If we haven't met before, my name's Dawn. I am a contrarian soul guide and spiritual teacher. I have been coaching for over 8 years and have been in this journey, my own spiritual awakening, for the last 12. And for the last 5 have been, maybe almost 6 now, actually have been a certified spiritual director. And so most of what I come forward with is the practical and the spiritual. So how do we take like these big, huge thoughts and where do they show up in our everyday life? Where can we bring them into helping us quit our own suffering? And quit's probably a really good word for it, because often we don't realize that we are buying into the loop, buying into that pattern that is showing up, and we're trying to figure out like, why does this keep happening, and we don't get it. And so I love nothing more than really helping us understand who am I, and being able to actually answer the question, which often we do by who are you not. So it's kind of like when we don't know what we want, but we know what we don't want. Same idea. So sometimes we go through this as the opposite. So we can find those practical tips and tools to get us into this place where we can quit our own suffering. And so today I want to talk about looping and patterns. And it's coming up a lot in my own world. When I spoke last week, and I think even the week before, I talked about these old patterns, these old wounds that come up, and then trying to unravel them. And what is a thought form, and how do we unravel these things? And so it's been fun and not always fun to go through and have these experiences with ourselves. And that's part of my own personal journey as a contrarian soul guide, is the journey of walking the path first. And so everything that I seem to go through and guide through is from my own journey, from my own path that I get challenged with. And then it's like, okay, well, how do we transmute this karma? And so if you think of karma as the law of cause and effect, so it is simply energy interacting and playing itself all the way out. And so what we put out has to come back, and it's just the way that energy works. It's just part of the laws of the universe. And so often we think like, oh, like, why are bad things happening to me? I must be a bad person. And so, and this is the inner child in us. And there's nothing wrong with us for thinking this. It's that we get taught it really, really young. If you're a good girl, good things will happen. If you're a bad girl, bad things will happen. So when shit's going sideways, often we think, what am I doing wrong, or what's wrong with me? And so it can increase these feelings of insecurity, of betrayal, of abandonment, of unworthiness. And it'll come from the experience we're having. But we don't actually know if an experience that we're having is good or bad. And so often what we want to do on the journey of remembering is to keep coming back to the present moment. Do you absolutely know that this is terrible? So Monday I had a day and a half where everything was going sideways, and had a situation come up that pulled the rug out from under me. I was not expecting it. And I'm always like, I reserve the right to be human. I'm going to take a little bit of time to pivot. I don't expect myself to, just be like, is what it is. And for the most part, I can be there. But there's times where I'm losing my shit. And that's just part of the journey, is being real and being human and owning where we're each at. And this is where I'm at today. And I know where it is that I want to get to, but this is the journey. And I think part of the struggle, even in our everyday life, is helpful. It's helpful because, again, it shows us where we get to gain some resiliency. We get to break some patterns and habits. And so for myself, it was taking the time to get to, by Tuesday morning, I was like, good. I was kind of in this beautiful neutral space. And then to move through yesterday while I was traveling up and down the island, I had to go for a doctor's appointment. And I was listening to spiritual teachers, because that's what I do. And I was listening to some work, and it was like you don't even know if this is bad. And it made me think about this. Like, a lot of the times we think, like, this is what I want. If you wanted to write a list to God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, creation, if you wanted to write a list, you could write a list of 10 things that you want in your life that would make you happy. And we write down things like, I want my dream career. I want, a relationship. It might be like getting married or kids, or we write these things down, or to travel, or money, or we write all these things down. And really what we want is what we think those things will give us. And so this is the journey of practical spiritualism, is like unwinding, like, why do you want that? And so we have answers, but if we keep going deeper and deeper, and then what would happen? And then what would happen? We finally get to the base of what we all desire, which is peace and happiness, a sense of abiding joy, not that is going to come like fleetingly and then leave again. And so then the teacher was saying, a lot of times the things that you think you want, you get it, and it turns out to be the worst thing. And so he used the analogy of, like, you ask to get married. You want to, like, oh, I want to have a wedding. I want to get married. I want kids. And so you're like, but what if you found out, or what if you knew that when you get married, he would turn out to be an abusive man that would be a terrible father? Now, do you want to get married? And you're like, oh, no. Because getting married wasn't actually what you wanted. It was what it was going to give you. And so he goes through that. And so I was thinking about it, and I went, oh, yeah. When I was 18 years old and I married my first husband, I really believed I was so lucky because somebody loved me. Somebody loved me enough that they would marry me. And that is an honest thought that was in my head, is that this is it. This is wonderful. Somebody loves me, so I get married. And it turned out to be what would seem at the time the worst thing in the world. He ended up being a sociopath, extraordinarily abusive, physical, mental, emotional, and sexual cruelty. I lost 5 pregnancies during the time. It, like, terrible. Now, again, though, non-judgment. So I thought it was good. Then I thought it was awful. And then I go through the next process, and here we are. It's almost 30 years since I got out of that marriage. And I would say, you know what? It was a great thing that happened to me. Did I love it? No. Was it hard? Absolutely. Would I change it? No, never. Because it has given me so many skills and deep understanding about myself that I would never give those things up. So the things that I got from it long term, for me now with some space and time, you kind of look back and go, oh, so we never know if something's going to be awesome or if something's going to be terrible. And the same thing happens. We go through something and we think this is the worst thing in our life, and it turns out to be the greatest thing. And so how often these things happen in our world, and all of that is because our mind thinks that it knows what's best for us. And the problem is the mind is a cataloger of information. So the mind only has the information it's been given, and it goes through perception to receive that information. And so we go through all of our life cataloging information. The world is unfolding in front of us. And this is what we see. This is the world is right in front of us. We're not really even paying attention to what's happening to the left of us or to the right or behind us or above us or below us. We're just dealing with this part of the world that's unfolding in front of us in this moment. And half of us aren't even present in the moment. So we're missing a lot of information. So it's only getting a certain amount of information coming in. It's being filtered through our perception, which is being built by the past experiences. And then our mind is like, oh, this is good, this is bad, but it's basing it on what it knows and what it knows that we desire and how it thinks we could get there. And so these are the patterns that we create. And so today I want us to talk about that we're not the pattern itself. And then how do we break that loop of like in these patterns, these habits, without breaking ourselves? without, harming ourselves or beating ourselves up. So how do we do that work in a really loving way? If that makes sense. So the piece that I want us to be aware of, like, that we're not stuck. And so often life will look like, oh, I'm stuck. I'm in the same place that I've always been. And it's not that we're stuck. So I wrote, but what if we're not stuck? What if we're just being loyal to a pattern that once kept us safe? And so this might be showing up for you in money. It might be showing up for you in love, in friendships. It might be showing up for you even on this journey of, like, we say we want a spiritual awakening. We want, to know ourselves. We want to feel fulfilled. We want to feel joy and love. But if we've never experienced that, or we had something like what I did, where I got married and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be wonderful, and then it turns out within 24 hours to be terrible, then there is all of a sudden this information, this pattern that gets created. So now the next time I think something's going to be wonderful, will I trust it? And so the mind goes, oh, this is going to be wonderful. But my nervous system, the patterns that are within my cells, goes terrible. Being happy and excited about something is not good. Asking for something is dangerous. So there's a whole bunch of patterns that come in, and those patterns are there to keep you safe. So I was dealing with my own, oh, hello, Denise. Yay, it's the comments are working. So I was working with my own coach and therapist, and I was like, going through these blocks and patterns. And one of the patterns that I noticed coming up was that it's not safe to ask for anything. So I actually had 3. I went in with, like, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Then we had compliments are dangerous. And so if you've ever been near me when somebody compliments me, I flinch. And so I have a physical reaction to being complimented. And so we worked through that, both in, like, the psychology of it and in the neutralizing of why that happens. And then we went into this piece of it's dangerous to ask for anything. And so it was like, you look at, like, the marriage, like, well, I just wanted somebody to love me. I was in love with the idea. I just wanted somebody to be married and have a child and have somebody love me. And then I was given this experience, or I created this experience, and this is what it is. So it's dangerous to ask. This goes all the way into, like, deep childhood stuff at, like, 3 and 4 years old. And so we were, like, going through and then repatterning. So how do we break these loops of what we get stuck in? And some things it's like, I want to travel. I want the joy and all this stuff. But then if we think money's dangerous, then cultivating trips or this life that we want to experience is going to seem dangerous. And so we want to break these patterns, these loops that are happening for us, because although our subconscious mind, our mind, thinks it's keeping us safe, it's actually interfering with our ability to grow. And so if you think of every new experience, we gain wisdom if we allow it to pass through us. And so we want to let these experiences pass through us. We want to have even the ones that seem like not awesome. So for me on Monday, it was like unhappy, not awesome. And from a very physical, very, like, realistic sense, not awesome. But from a big picture sense, it's like, okay, but wait, if I zoom out and look at this, hey, Bobby, if I zoom out and look at this, can I see this from a different way? And can I be absolutely sure that this is terrible? And the answer is no, I can't be absolutely sure that this is terrible. And so then my coach even this morning was like, let's add one more into it. Can we be excited about it? And so it's like we're training our nervous system to shift away from, like, oh, like, this is awful. I'm so excited that. And so it's like, I'm so excited that this is creating space for something new to arrive. I'm so excited that and even, we were talking about, like, when we're losing something, when that is even within grief of losing something, I'm so excited that I got to have this time with this person. And so we're teaching our nervous system a different response. And it's not that we're lying, because we want it to be like, I am excited for new possibilities and new opportunities. I am so excited that I had this time to love this person and have them in my life. So we don't want to lie to ourselves, but it's changing the dialogue, because the mind, the subconscious, is always always listening. Our nervous system's always listening to every single thing that we say. And so if I'm saying things that are counterproductive to what it is that I want to create in my life, if I want to create a life that has forgiveness, that has abundance, that is loving and has a lot of connection, then I can't say things like, people are assholes. And these are things I used to say. People are assholes. You can't trust people. It's compliments are dangerous. You can't trust people. Like, there was a lot of them. And my nervous system had reasons to feel that way, but it was my job to start changing it. And so I'm so excited that I get to explore new friendships. I'm so excited that I get this new opportunity. I'm so excited for the growth of our clinic. I'm so excited of. And so we can change the vibration, the frequency that we are living at. We're making a choice to change the language. And so it doesn't mean that it's toxic positivity. So please note that. We want to move through our emotions, not resist them. So when grief comes up, when anger comes up, like, I needed to give myself time on Monday to move through the emotions that I had: irritation, frustration, betrayal, grief, anger. And I got home and my husband's like, good on you for just owning every emotion that's coming up and being with it. And so we stay present, but as those things are passing through, then we start to shift. And so yes, we can have grief come up and still be grateful or still be excited. So we can have these emotions, honor the emotions, don't resist them, because then we'd have a samskara or create more around our pain body. So we don't want to resist things. We want to let them process through, don't grip them, don't identify with them, which is what we're talking about today. Because what happens when we identify with a pattern, it embeds deeper and deeper and deeper. And so if instead we change our language, then not only are we changing that, we're starting to think about like ringing a bell. So we want to neutralize what is within us, what's being said, what's in our cells. We want to neutralize them first so that we can embed. And so we want to be able to allow these emotions to arise that come up for us, these patterns, these frustrations. Let ourselves feel the emotion of frustration first. Feel it. Only lasts like 90 seconds, 2 minutes tops. So if you don't add more to it, feel frustration, and then how do we start to neutralize them and then come into a new embedding. And so even the spiritual teacher I was listening to yesterday, that was one of the things I was talking about as well, was like, okay, but sometimes we want to ask the question like, is this even true? So is the thought I'm having even true? Is this terrible? Are you absolutely sure this is terrible? And then he's like, but then I can also get curious. Like why? Why is this happening? Well, it's happening because I own a clinic and it's a cognitive wellness center, and so you've got a lot to be grateful for. So you start to shift to like, wow, how lucky am I that? So his point was, how lucky am I? And so we start shifting this language so that we change the way that we're seeing it. And we do have the ability and the right to choose. And that's the difference between habitual consciousness, or what people will, and I don't like the terms, people will call, people being asleep or unconscious. I'm really careful. We're always conscious. We are always conscious. It's just whether or not we're in habitual consciousness, this patterns and loops, or am I making a choice? What is intention work? So I'm not a huge affirmations person. I'm far more pro intentions, where we're making a choice. This is who I choose to be. These are the thoughts I choose to have. Is it always going to work? No. Sometimes you're going to slip. The teacher I was listening to yesterday, he's been on this journey 60 years. And he's like, he still has to drive down the street and have talks with himself about people driving in front of him that are going 5 kilometers below the speed limit. So, it's not, we just keep working with what comes up, because it's just mind. And mind, its job is to think. It's a brilliant thing if we get all of this crazy neurotic shit out of the way, which is what we're talking about today, is like, how do we break the patterns? How do we, get rid of these things that are there so that we can neutralize them, get rid of them, so that we can embed in stuff what we do want, what we do choose to believe, and then embed that stuff in ourselves instead, and have a totally different experience in this life that we are creating, which is really the basis of everything that we need to remember, is that you are pure creation. And all these things are just interfering with that energy that's meant to flow through you. So the pattern isn't you, and thinking of it as unmet energy. And so patterns are not personality, they're memory. And so if we keep going with them, they become what we would call apparent personality. And so memory is what cultivates what we call apparent personality versus true personality. An apparent personality is like ego, psyche. It's based off your wounds. It's based off of the dramas and traumas of the past. It's based off of our memories. And so whether we're gripping, I love this, or we're pushing it away, I don't love this, whatever's happening, we're creating these samskars, we're creating our pain body, which then begins to show up as our apparent personality. So what we're projecting into the world. Our true personality is that we are pure creation. That is our truth. And our journey in this entire life is to come back to our truth, is to remember who we are. That's the big journey. And so understanding that when we have a pattern, what might look like we're sabotaging ourselves is really the body, the nervous system trying to protect us. And so it's saying like, oh, I don't like this person. So if we've been betrayed by somebody, we might start to notice that our nervous system goes offline whenever a person like themselves, or somebody like them is around, something that reminds you of them. And so all of a sudden our nervous system might go offline. And so what the key here is to remember that it is trying to protect us from a version of the past. And so we want to hear and listen to the nervous system, but we need to understand that it's not right. You're not actually in danger if you stay present. You could be in danger if you keep going through the loops. So the more conscious we become, the more we are aware of what's happening in our bodies, in our systems, then we can start to shift it. And the big key is we always want to hit to neutral, because if we're at neutral, then we're just clear. Then we can just be present in this moment. So neutral's good. Why do we embed an opposing or a more positive way to look? Is because we're trying to embed more of what our truth is, that life is simply happening and it's unfolding in front of us, and it's not about us, and none of it's personal, and we get to choose how we look at it. And so we want to start shifting or embedding the choices that we make of how do we want to show up in this world, how do we want to look at the world. And so understanding that the pain body, it feeds on identification. So this is where ego, identification with form, thought forms, emotional forms, and physical form, including our shit stuff and things. So all of that stuff is all things that create or cultivate our ego, our identity, our psyche, our personality. And so the pain body is the wounds themselves. So that is the energy of the thought form. So even think thought is more tangible than emotion. Even though we can feel or sense the energy of emotion more, thought forms become pictures. And so we can visualize them, we can see them. So think like dreams. And so in dreams, we are releasing excess emotional and mental stress. And we are getting an opportunity to see something so that the nervous system can become used to it. And so this is what we're cultivating. And so the pain body is the subtle body, the energy of mental consciousness and vital consciousness. So thought and emotions, those two, electric and magnetic, combined create our subtle body. And that subtle body is not only within every single cell of our body, it's also within us and all around us. So the body's contained within the subtle body. And so when we have the pain body is like the shadow aspect of our subtle body. And so it is where we store all these little energies, and I think of them like little slivers. And so they create these little festering wounds. When we call them in yoga, they be called samskaras. You think like a scar on the energetic body. So the energy can't flow the way that it's supposed to be flowing. It's energy still, so it's always in motion, but it might be just spinning, like a little pebble that spins. And so it interferes with the flow of energy because it becomes like this energetic, like a rock, like a sphere of energy that's blocking the flow within us. And if we get too much going on, we create a dam. And so that is really what the pain body is like. The pain body is all the way through us. And it is, although it starts in the heart with emotions and trying to protect it, it also shows a lot within the head, within the thought forms of what's there and what's tangible in our world and how it interferes. So that's why a lot of the times when it's not that we have an emotion around something, so nobody wants to hear me speak, I didn't have an emotion coming. That was a thought form. And so then it's like, okay, how do I unwind this thought form and how do I unembed this? And it's the thought form that's there that is creating more and more of these emotions. And then when I feel unheard or feel invisible, then it activates that thought form. So we create this looping chicken and the egg situation within ourselves. And so the pain body, it feeds off the identification with the wound. And that's important for us to know. So if we have a wound, this is just who I am. The moment that we say that, and it isn't unconditional love and joy, it's a lie. That is not who you are. That is your pain body speaking. And so the question would be then, who's talking? Who's saying that when you say that? And so it becomes this aspect where ego feeds off the pain body and the pain body feeds off of ego. And so we get this issue that starts coming up and we create these patterns and loops because they want to feed and they're alive. They're energy, they're pulsing energy, and it is absolutely something that we need to diffuse so that the energy can flow through us again the way that we're designed. That is our natural state of being. Even if it's not normal anymore, it is our natural way of being. And that's the journey we came here for, was to start remembering that and to experience it, to be the flow of that so that others can see, can watch, can witness, and then they can do it too. So we just keep rippling out into the world. And so if you can see the pattern, then you're already separate from it. It's a big one. Up until very recently, I did not see the pattern of nobody wants to hear me speak. I didn't see it. I was unaware of it. And all I saw when it was being activated was the situation, the wound being taken out. So it happened in the winter when I was camping and the same thing had come up. And all of a sudden, but I was completely engaged in the relationship and I wasn't seeing it from this other picture. I wasn't seeing what was coming up. Once I came back from Greece and I had this really beautiful spiritual experience, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I became aware of the wound. I could see the wound. And I'm like, we have a problem. I cannot do the work that I'm supposed to be doing and have that thought form existing within me. So I need to remove this, and I'm being given an opportunity. So now we're shifting, and we shift from this is happening to me to, and not even this is happening for me, but here's my opportunity. This is happening through me. I'm creating this opportunity for me to deal with this. And so we start to make this shift. So once we can see the pattern, the good news is we're already separate from it. We've created some space between ourselves. We're not in the drama. We're now watching the drama. So think like life is a soap opera, and sometimes we're in it and it like seems so real, and then we pull out and you're watching from your couch. And so we zoom out and it's now just a TV show. And so we're not emotionally engaged in it anymore. And this is like the greatest thing because it means we're on our first solid step of getting out of it. And so there's this sacred power in the pause. And so I talk about it all the time, about the sacred pause. And there's a reason for it. The more we can habitually get into the pattern of pausing, so when we are super reactive, especially we usually will have at least one relationship or situation that we are reactive in. Rather than staying away from a reactive situation or person, we are better off. You might want to take a pause for a little bit from that relationship until you can start practicing. We want to practice by going into the situation or into the relationship, but we limit the amount of time. And so it might be for myself, before my mom had passed years ago, actually, I had made it so I often didn't answer the call at all. Just couldn't. I was like, I am not the version of myself I want to be. I'm super reactive. I don't have any empathy. I don't have forgiveness in me here. Like, this is a problem. And so it was Pema Chodron, doing some work with her, and it was like, go back into it for 1 minute. Hey, Mom, I just wanted to give you a quick call because I've got like 2 minutes before a client came in, but I just was thinking about you. How's your day going? I've already given myself the out. I only have 2 minutes. And so I've always like, once it begins, I'm like, okay, well, I got to run because my client's here, but I hope you have a great day. Click. And that was like, and then I could get it to 3, and then I could get it to 5, and then I could get it to a place where I could be on the phone for an hour and she's just being her, and I could just like be present with it. Not about me, not be triggered, and I could keep pausing. And so the key is to have this sacred pause. So when something gets said or we're having it, we take the breath and we fully feel the breath in, we pause. And so we can even use it by saying, you know, oh, like give me a moment just to think about that. So we're giving ourselves that moment to think, to pause. So the sacred pause becomes a major player when we start becoming aware of a pattern. And so for myself, when I feel myself being triggered, I'm like, I don't speak. I immediately pull out of the situation and I'm like, I'm just going to like absorb and think on this. And so I'm just like letting myself have some distance and space until I'm going to get back into it. And when I feel myself grounded and able to be stable and I can respond versus react, now I'm ready to go back into the situation. And so the loop often continues when we react without the pause. So if we have the pattern and then we're reacting, then we're still stuck in the drama. We're actually creating more of the loop. It's feeding the pain body. We get it charged, we get reactive, boom, it gets more food, resentment, anger, jealousy, whatever it is. Boom, we're back into it. And so we keep creating these loops and patterns. Our job is to pause. Pause creates space. The space allows us to shift into witness. And now we're starting to get that first real phase of getting away from it. So we have the awareness, and pause allows us to change our frequency and how we're showing up. It lets us change the moment right then and there in lifetime. And safety lives in the pause and not the reaction. So understand that when we react, it usually comes from this the energy of anger. And anger is the defense against fear. So we have fear in the first piece, fear that we're being bumped, that we're being wounded, that we're whatever it is, there'll be some sort of fear of loss that's coming underneath it. And then we get reactive, which is the defense. And so we get aggressive as a defensive mechanism. And so when we're reactive, we're still stuck in there and we're still being manipulated by the wound itself or the past experiences. We're even being manipulated by the present moment instead of making choice. We don't have free will anymore. And so we want to tap in with the pause into our free will. And ego wants to control, the pain body wants drama, and the self wants truth. And so this is important. So the ego wants the control, which is the defensive, the aggressive, the passive aggressive comments, things like that. That's all egoic. It just is. So when we are in those triggered victim places, we are in our ego. The pain body wants the situation because it feeds. Like attracts like. The anger, the hurt, the embarrassment, it like attracts like. And so it's feeding off of the entire dramatic situation. Whereas our soul wants truth, and the soul can only live in the present moment. In the present moment, you're standing there, somebody's doing something or something's going on, and that's it. That's the truth of what's happening. Go back to fact. And the pause allows us to get to the facts. And so our soul only wants truth. It doesn't actually want the drama. And when we pause, we interrupt that loop by being completely present. And so I just said the pause isn't weak. The pause is where the power is. And it's like so important. When I used to work in retail still, when I was doing lighting, people would come in and they'd be super reactive, like coming right at us, mad about something going on. And I would like literally count back from 10 in my head before I would answer. And I would just sit there and stare directly, eye contact, everything. And they'd be like, are you going to answer? And I would be like, and I would actually say them because I'm a contrarian, I'm an asshole. I would say, I'm actually counting back from 10 to 1 in my head so I don't punch you. So let's start again, 10. And I would literally like keep talking myself down because I used to be extraordinarily reactive. And so then they'd be like, that's uncomfortable. And so I'd just be sitting there staring at them while I was counting in my head, and then they'd start backing up and backing up and backing up. And I would sometimes say, you know what, I'm going to go and take a break, or I'm going to suggest that you leave the store for a few minutes and come back in and try this again. And so then those are like extreme situations where somebody's like blowing up. And so using the pause, this was my game changer. Right from the very beginning when I began my spiritual journey, the pause was my game changer. It was where all of a sudden I could see myself and I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed. Oh, I want to react because whatever. And so all of a sudden it was like giving me time to go, oh, this is what I'm experiencing, but just stay present. Where's your feet? What's really happening? And the more that I could get into that, the more I started to break all of these crazy habits I had of blowing up, of being reactive, because it was always a defensive place. And it always came from my inner victim and my wounded child. And so once I understood that, it wasn't my job to allow it or to justify the behavior. My job was to heal and to give myself space, be present with myself. And when I was present with myself, it's like the inner child gets to go, oh, mom's home. And I can just like relax now. And so the more present we are in ourselves, in our bodies, in a moment, the easier this gets. I promise you. How to break the loop without breaking yourself. All right. So breaking the pattern doesn't actually mean, breaking yourself open again. So a lot of the times it feels this way. It feels like we've got to disintegrate to fly. And so understanding that we're not trying to break, and the way that we speak to ourselves is so, so vitally important. And so we don't want to belittle ourselves. We don't want to relive the wound. So I don't need to go back into all the wounds of when I was told that I had nothing to say, and being told that I was stupid, being told that I wasn't supposed to be speaking. I don't need to go into all of those. It's unnecessary for me to break the pattern. I need to simply witness in this moment, this is where we're at. Yes, those things have happened in the past and they're done. And so I don't need to relive them. I don't have to cut my death by 10,000 paper cuts. We don't need to go back in and relive every moment to let the moment go. And so understanding that we don't need to do that, we can just witness the situation with compassion. And compassion is one of the characteristics of our soul. And so to just sit there, to witness, to have the courage to stay with ourselves, and the compassion to allow the emotions to rise, the fear, the rage, the anger, the embarrassment, whatever it is, let them rise, and just be compassionate with yourself while we go through the loop, the pattern that's showing up. And then repatterning starts with acknowledgement, not force. And so the big piece is, like I said in the very beginning, is just acknowledging it. Oh, I have this pattern that, because this thing is here, that whenever I go to speak, I will I have really worked hard to make sure that I give myself bullet points, but no script. I'm only to riff. And so why? Because my mind, my ego is like, oh, but it needs to be perfect. And it's like, you know what if you just grounded in and stayed centered and were super authentic instead? And so, this is a pattern that I had, and it came from nobody wants to hear you speak. So by over educating, by referencing lots of people, going through all of it, I was trying to counter what was coming up. Once I saw the pattern, I didn't have to do that anymore. I could start being really gentle, and seeing oh, where does this show up in my life? Okay, let's ease in. What could I do instead? And so we can ease in these adjustments and do it gently, instead of beating ourselves up, instead of forcing and creating all of this tension and chaos inside of ourselves. And we can ask, what is this part of me protecting me from? And so, that was part of it, part of that protection, what is this protecting me from? What is this wound of being silent? Well, it stops me from going through, and especially when we're in a spiritual realm, most of us have, especially as women, we have the persecution wound. We've been persecuted for being women. It's not just about spirituality and being witches. Women were persecuted for being in attunement with their divine feminine, for being clairvoyant, clairsentient, to be empathic, to be in one with nature, to be a herbalist. All of these things were considered, all of a sudden became this feminine wound. And so we have that deep within ourselves, because epigenetically, they say it stays within for 7 generations minimum. What I've watched within energy medicine and energy mastery is we can hold emotions being contracts passed down for hundreds of generations. And so we have these wounds within us that is we made the choice by coming and manifesting as women to heal these wounds. This is part of the journey, is for us to heal the divine feminine. And so understanding, like, what is this protecting me from? Well, it's protecting me from being persecuted. Okay, well, you're not being persecuted right now. And well, it's going to do this, and it's like, great, but we have all these things around us to make sure that we're going to be okay. And so we're just going to try this and dip in with our toes and move forward. And so for me, it was starting those Instagram mystical mornings, and then I do them on Instagram live, and then I share them over to Facebook. So you should be able to see them on both things. Sometimes it gives me some glitches, but if you can't, let me know. I will start maybe sharing them in here as well with everybody, because they are becoming quite fun for me. And then you can also ask yourself what new truth is trying to emerge. And so within that silence was, the truth was, it was time for me to speak. It was time for me to speak my truth. And I couldn't speak my truth if I continued with this patterned thought. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And so, and this will go for even the little things, even the big things. So maybe it's money, and it's, a fear of abundance. We want to be abundant. We want to have money coming in. We want this life that we want to be able to create. But if we feel like, we've been raised with the belief that people who have money are evil, or money's evil, or people who have money, rich people go to hell, all these, then all of a sudden we're going to have to deal with this thought form that we need to unravel and understand that you're here and present with yourself. Money doesn't make people evil. Money attachment with our ego identifying with the money, that can throw us off course. And evil used to be separation. So it would cultivate separation from our soul. And so we can put some guardrails up that would help us make sure that that doesn't happen. So knowing that there's this thing that's trying to emerge as well. So it's protecting us from something. What is that? What truth is trying to emerge, and how can I bring these two back together? And remember that the moment you witness the loop, instead of becoming it, you see, you rise. And that is the big piece here, is us really starting to witness ourselves, to see ourselves. Those are the things that help cultivate intimacy. And the more that we see and stay present with ourselves, the more we cultivate self-trust and self-love, which gives us the basis for everything else that we desire, which is to be peaceful and have abiding joy, to have unconditional love, to be, not just have from other relationships, but to be, to experience unconditional love, your truth, your birthright, all the time. So I hope this helped with this concept of unwinding some of these patterns and some steps that we can take. These first big, they're huge steps. And if we keep doing them over and over again, we put in the reps and we start changing our life. We start shifting from the apparent personality to our divine personality, which is what brings us to the path of abiding joy, of unconditional love, brings us closer to love and further from fear, which is what we all desire. That's it for today, you guys. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, please throw them in the comments. I want to know you're here. Let me know what you think. Let me know what comes up for you. If you don't feel comfortable yet doing this in a public forum, like in our group, then you can always private message me and I will answer you. So just know that. Oh my goodness, Karen, yay. I was just thinking of you yesterday driving home. I haven't seen you lately. So yeah, just let me know what comes up. What is there for our thoughts? What brings us forward? And what can be done to help us let go instead of being dragged by all of these traumas and dramas of the past. I hope you guys have the most amazing Thursday, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. Bye for now.